what the Church of Scientology is so afraid of.
This is SPTV. Welcome back, everybody, for more coverage of the Danny Masterson trial live from Los Angeles. Guys, I feel a little bad today because I do not know how to give a summary or a recap of closing arguments when closing arguments is already a summary and a recap of the entire frickin' case. I've been thinking about this all day. Like, what am I going to say? I can't summarize a summary of the last 3 weeks of testimony. So just some thoughts. I spent some time trying to get as much of a read as possible on the jury and what they were paying attention to the most and who they were paying attention to the most. And, you know, I've said throughout this entire trial, and this held true today, the jury is phenomenal at keeping their poker faces. So it's hard to even give much feedback there, other than the fact that nobody was falling asleep during the district attorney's closing arguments, and more than one person was falling asleep during the defense's closing arguments, which were done by Cohen. And there's something about the substance of the closing arguments that I think, at least in this case, actually favors the DA. And that is, you know, the accusations against Danny Masterson, the fact that the accusations have come from 4 separate women in this case, and all different years, different locations, different circumstances. And the fact that the testimony is spread out over such a period of time with corroborating witnesses and police officers' testimony. The fact that Ariel Anson, the deputy DA or the assistant DA, I never know which is the right term to use, is able to take, you know, 3 or so weeks of testimony and distill it all down to an extremely precise chronological summary of all of the accusations is like an excellent way to end the trial. And she did an excellent job. So clear, so concise, absolutely connecting with the jury. The jury's paying rapt attention to Ariel Anson. Now, on the flip side, you've got Philip Cohen, who's getting up there. And instead of taking a whole lot of testimony and making it concise and easy to understand and wow, I really got it, his job is almost the opposite. It's to make it seem like the last 3 weeks of testimony was incredibly confusing and rife with contradictions. And that's pretty much what his closing statement was. His entire closing statement was almost a response to one of the things Ariel Anson said in her closing arguments, right? In her closing argument, which was, don't let the defense fool you into thinking that minor little discrepancies in a story as it evolves over time means the victims must be making it all up and it must be some grand conspiracy. It was almost as if Cohen's entire closing argument was designed to respond to that one thing and go, wow, that was terrifying to hear a DA say that you should ignore inconsistencies. My goodness. And then that was the door that he opened to then go, is this a minor inconsistency, or is this a horrifying thing to consider that someone could be convicted when, so his job was to make little discrepancies seem like big issues. And he did not neglect the opportunity to essentially relitigate every single perceived inconsistency or contradiction in stories over time. It was mind numbing. And it's hard for me to, just as an observer, because really that's all a juror is as well, guys. A juror is just an observer. It's hard for me as an observer in the gallery to think that being an observer in the jury pool, that his approach to this whole thing would impact them significantly differently than it impacted me. It impacted me like, for the love of God, we've already heard all of this and you're just rehashing it all. Like, let us get on with it. And there's for me, there was an element of, and if this is really all you've got, then please hurry up and let us get to our job. So, I've tried to be as open as I can about the bias that I have on this trial going into it. I was in Scientology during the years that these attacks occurred. I was in the Sea Organization in Los Angeles during the years that these attacks occurred. My circle of friends very seriously overlaps with the circle of friends of all the victims in this case. In fact, two of Danny's victims even went when I was in the Sea Organization. My wife's job was such that she was one of the people that public Scientologists could go to as sort of a last port of call of like, I need help. And two of Danny's victims actually went to my wife when we were still in the Sea Org. I didn't know about it at the time, such as the nature of information control in Scientology and in the Sea Organization. But my point is, I have a very heavy bias in this. I don't wonder whether Danny did this. I know Danny did this. Even given the specifics of how Danny was handled internally in the Scientology world, any Scientologist looking at the evidence in this case knows that Scientology determined that Danny did this. And so, so I'm trying not to, I'm trying not to view everything that happens in the courtroom just through the lens of Danny did this, and everyone should be as confident about it as I am, and the evidence should be as clear to everyone else as it is to me. I'm really trying to sort of detach myself from my bias. It's hard. I'm not sure if I'm doing it. But I guess what I'm trying to say, I've been trying to rein myself in a little bit on being over optimistic about how things are going, because to me, it seems that things are going fantastically. And the same held true for the closing arguments. I was so incredibly impressed with Ariel Anson and how she conducted the closing arguments. I mean, honestly, when we broke, I was like, if I'm on that jury, I'm convicting. Like, if there's no way a member of that jury heard those closing arguments after hearing all the testimony for the last several weeks and is doing anything but voting guilty, but then Cohen gets up there and he goes on for 2 hours about, how the Jane Doe said this here and that here. And I guess someone might say he's good at making a big deal out of nothing. To me, it doesn't really land. And that's sort of the big question mark for me, is there some difference between how the information is landing with me and how it might be landing with the jurors? There's one thing Cohen kept repeating that really bothered me, and I want to state it out loud here so that you guys can maybe give me some feedback on it. It really seemed like he was somehow allowed to actually misstate the rules of evidence. Is it the rules of evidence? The jury misstate the jury instructions to the jury. I wrote this down a few times. Here's what he said. You don't, so he goes, okay. He was talking about the umbrella of bias or motivation. He was talking about the fact that several of the Jane Does are involved in a civil lawsuit against Scientology and Danny Masterson, and that jurors can take into account motivation. And he goes, we heard, back in 2004, Jane Doe 1 sent a demand letter, demanding some financial settlement, or she would sue. Asks for money in return for not filing a lawsuit. That was, my notes say, starts in 2000. Strong feelings about Scientology, motives not to be truthful. There are motives all over the place. This is Cohen talking to the jury. He goes, is it reasonable that the Jane Does may have a motive to essentially be untruthful? And he goes, you don't have to find that the answer is yes. You only have to find that it's reasonable. If it's reasonable that the Jane Does may have a motive, then you must accept it because it points to innocence, and the jury instructions are the law. And as he said this, I thought to myself, am I mishearing him? I was like, did I totally tune out when they were reading the jury instructions? Like, is he referring to something that I'm not aware of? And yet he kept repeating this later on. He goes, any reasonable explanation that points to innocence must be adopted. And no one objected. Okay, so he says, this was Cohen again speaking to the jury. He goes, while you can find someone guilty based only on testimony from one person, he says specifically in a sexual assault case, you can find somebody guilty based solely on testimony from one person. But in order to do that, they have to be credible. So let's see if Jane Doe 1 was credible. And then he says some problems that he had with her testimony with regards to a firearm, the presence of one or the lack of presence of one during the assault, that Danny's attack on Jane Doe 1. And he starts to talk about whether is there any reasonable explanation why she could be being untruthful about that. And he goes, any reasonable explanation that points to innocence must be adopted. Now, I feel like he was being cute with the word reasonable in the context of reasonable doubt, because let's just take all the Jane Does collectively, and let's go, is it reasonable that they might have an axe to grind against Danny and Scientology? Well, sure, it's reasonable, but that doesn't mean it's true. And someone might go, well, maybe I'm using the word reasonable wrong. Well, maybe the jurors are using the word reasonable wrong. Like, to me, that's why I thought he was taking a bit of a liberty here with how he was using the word reasonable. I felt like he was trying to use the word in the same context that it would be used in reasonable doubt. But in normal conversation, you go, well, is it reasonable to think that any of the Jane Does could have, have an axe to grind? Yeah, of course that's reasonable. That doesn't mean it's been demonstrated to be true here. That doesn't mean we think it's true, but anything's reasonable. It's not unreasonable. It's pretty common in human nature to have an axe to grind, whether it's against an ex or whether it's against Scientology or whatever. But you see what I'm saying? Like, Cohen was basically telling them, if there is literally any possibility that's reasonable, you must accept it. And because it points to innocence, and you must adopt it. And the fact that nobody was objecting just honestly confused the hell out of me. I'm not saying anyone did anything improper. I'm saying it confused the hell out of me. I didn't know what to think about it. There was even another part where he said it. He goes, this is much later on. If that is a reasonable conclusion, it must be adopted. I'm like, wait, I can come up with a million reasonable conclusions. It doesn't mean they're true. Anyway, I'm pointing this out because this is an example where I go, could Cohen have been scoring points there simply by virtue of confusing the jurors about what they're supposed to be doing? And I realized that if I had a blind spot here, this is probably where it would be. Is I'm going, well, the guy just, sounds like an idiot. He's doing the best with what he's got, but it's not landing. And the jurors are sitting over there going, oh yeah, that's what reasonable doubt means. Oh, okay. All right. I didn't think of it that way. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm hoping they're a bit smarter than that, but let's see. Okay. You might be going, why did you name this video Scientology Unleashes the Hounds? Because guys, I got many phone calls today from friends, neighbors, and associates in Clearwater, Florida, saying they got phone calls from a Scientology private they didn't say Scientology private investigators. They didn't say Scientology private investigator. They said, I got a phone call today from a private investigator asking about you. And you guys know my response was, oh, this is great. So I got the phone number of the private investigator. I've tried calling him a couple times personally. This guy did make a mistake and call a neighbor of mine who works on MacDill Air Force Base, and called him while she was with her colonel. And his phone number and information is being forwarded to the Office of Special Investigations. I'm not sure why exactly. I mean, it's not illegal for a PI to make phone calls about somebody. But maybe my neighbor who works in a secure facility on MacDill Air Force Base is wondering how this creep got her number. Who knows? But Scientology investigators it doesn't seem to be the best job these days. Now, you guys know that just earlier today, I dropped I hate that word. I published a video about Scientology attorney Vicky Podboreski. And if you guys are watching my channel pretty closely, you'll know I've kind of done 2 or 3 videos about Vicky Podboreski over the last week or so. You are not going to believe the video that Lisa Bartley at ABC7 put on Twitter today from almost 12 years ago, connecting Scientology attorney Vicky Podboreski with private investigators sent out to harass Scientology critics. Let me share this with you guys. I think you'll be able to hear this when I play it. I'm going to start the video halfway through because that's where the good part is.
When it gets reversed like that, isn't it? I don't know what's reversed. Okay. Go ahead. We work for Vicky Paparazzi. She's an attorney. She works for the Church of Scientology. She represents them. So we work for them.
Okay, guys, that was just a short little clip just to make my point. This is a video of two PIs sent out to harass Marty Rathbun, who at that time was a Scientology critic, Marty Rathbun, and Tiziano Lugli, who's also a former Scientologist. And those PIs were sent out to harass those guys in California. It might have been like Malibu or something. And they come right out and say, we work for Vicky Podboreski, who's Scientology's attorney. I actually don't know why Lisa Bartley tweeted this video. Lisa Bartley has absolutely no idea. I didn't talk to her at all today about the fact that Scientology PIs have started doing a noisy investigation on me. Now, in Scientology, there's two different kinds of investigations that Scientology will sick its PIs onto you for. There's the legitimate, like, quiet investigation, the covert investigation, and then there's the noisy investigation. The covert investigation is when they're actually trying to secretly find out what you're up to. The loud investigation is when they're just trying to mess with you, right? So when you have a PI who's calling around going, oh, hey, I'm a private investigator, and I don't really want to give you my name, but I'm working for an attorney, and we're investigating Aaron Smith-Levin. I just wanted to find out if you've had what your dealings have been with him, and what's your assessment of his character, and all this kind of stuff. That's what's called a loud investigation. They want that information to get back to you. So the covert style would be, when I find the Scientology PIs surveilling my home from a block away, when me and my family and Mike Rinder's family and Amy Scobie and Matt Pesch go to a park for a party the other week, and 4 different Scientology PIs are spotted covertly surveilling us. They didn't come up and say, I'm a private investigator working for someone who's investigating, da, 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 da. They were secretly surveilling us. So Scientology's covert operations have become overt, noisy operations. Now, I'm not saying these Scientology PIs were also hired by Vicky Podboreski, but I'm not saying they weren't. It's an awfully big coincidence that Scientology PIs have been being hired by Vicky Podboreski for at least 11 years that we can document. I'm out here in LA covering a trial that Vicky Podboreski has very much been prominent in. I'm doing videos about Vicky Podboreski. I'm dunking on her repeatedly, and all of a sudden Scientology PIs are doing a noisy investigation. I mean, these two things couldn't possibly be connected, could they? So anyway, just wanted to share that with you. Oh, guys, so the Ariel Anson finished her closing arguments. Rob Cohen finished his closing arguments. And now Deputy DA Mueller, Reinhold Mueller, is doing the final section of the closing arguments. He worked for about 40 minutes this afternoon before court ended. He's going to finish closing arguments tomorrow morning, and then the jury starts deliberating. I'm here until the jury verdict is read, guys. So please pray for a quick verdict. I don't want to still be here Tuesday just waiting for a verdict, you guys. Yeah, so that's the update. I guess that was a pretty good update for feeling like I couldn't do an update. I feel happy with that one. All right, let's jump over to the comments, guys. Slera says super sticker. And then Slera probably goes, oops, I didn't mean to do a super sticker. How does the church explain to its members why Hubbard didn't return on time? Slera, all Scientologists in the world, with the exception of a core of Sea Org members that worked at Scientology's international management base, Scientologists in the world did not expect L. Ron Hubbard to return. They were actually told that L. Ron Hubbard was going off to Target 2, which was some unspecified planet in some other solar system of the galaxy, to get Scientology started on another planet. We were supposed to finish the job here on Earth while he got the show rolling on another planet. And then we were supposed to go meet him at Target 2 later on after Earth was cleared. It sounds so stupid as I say it. That is actually what Scientologists believe. So they didn't have to explain it to anybody. Ryan says, haven't heard much about Danny's wife. Has she shown up at all? If not, why? It's known that she supports Danny Masterson and even trashes the Jane Does. So Danny Masterson's wife, Bijou Phillips, has been in court every single day The only exception was like the first few days of jury selection. Was she even there for jury selection? I don't even remember because I wasn't there. The pool reporter was covering it. Anyway, I remember for the first day or two, people were wondering where was Bijou. Am I getting her mixed up with Alana Masterson? I'm sorry. Bijou's been there every single day. His sister Alana was missing for the first many days, and then she started showing up. Bijou's been there every day. She sits there with a little smile on her face, as does Danny's mother, Carol. It's really disturbing. It's really disturbing. Okay, we got another one here. Kubiru, your coverage of this trial has been my most anticipated entertainment these last few weeks, and a new season of Drag Race All-Stars just started. Well, that is high praise, Kubiru. So I really appreciate that. Thank you very much. Jay Cooper, what does Scientology think of pets? Are members allowed to have pets? Does David Miscavige have a pet? Scientologists actually tend to really like animals and pets. Miscavige does have at least one dog. I mean, at least he did. Does he right now? I assume that he does. I think he's always had dogs. Most Sea Org members can't have pets because just the logistics of it. But most Scientologists are actually kind of animal lovers, at least in my experience. Yeah. Thank you for the question. Thank you for the super chat. SPTV Tattoo Warrior was watching the Roundup with Tony Ortega, but got my SPTV notification. We out, Tony. Hashtag SPTV wins every forking time. That is great. I love it. Love it, love it, love it. Thanks for joining me here live, SPTV Tattoo Warrior, and thank you for the super chat. Let's see. Debo, could you elaborate more on the evidence that Scientology knew Danny Masterson was guilty, please? Thanks for being our eyes and our ears. So, Debo, in Scientology, if you are a victim of anything, you report anything, particularly of a serious nature. Scientology investigates both sides of anything, like any complaint, any serious complaint. Like, I mean, in this case, we're talking about sexual assault. So Scientology is going to thoroughly investigate both the person being accused and the person doing the accusing. Now, in the case of Jane Doe 1, there, and I won't get into all the details right now because it's just not the right time, but there were many senior Scientologists involved in ascertaining whether Danny really did these things and trying to get him to not only admit what he did, but admit that it was rape. Danny pretty much admitted that Jane Doe 1's version of events was accurate. He just didn't agree that that's rape. And you might go, well, who the hell cares if he agrees? Well, in Scientology, it's really kind of all about getting the person to realize that that's what it is. It's not like the prison system where you're like, well, we don't care if you agree that it was murder. You're going to prison anyway. There's no prison in Scientology. Do you know what I mean? It's like they're trying to get Danny up to the level of awareness where he confronts the reality of his actions. And you go, what's the consequence for not confronting? No consequence. I guess you'll just keep paying for more auditing or keep doing more ethics. So in Danny's case, with Jane Doe 1, there was actually a confidential settlement where Danny Masterson had to pay Jane Doe 1 $400,000. Let me tell you something. Scientology would never in a million years have allowed that settlement to even occur, to even make Danny do this if they themselves hadn't determined, yeah, Danny, you better do this because you did this. So Scientology basically determined Danny did this. It presented a legal threat to Scientology because it involved Scientologists. Scientology didn't want Jane Doe 1 suing or going to the authorities. So they're the ones who basically forced Danny to do this settlement so that Jane Doe 1 would be locked up and precluded from speaking publicly about any of this and not suing. Because Jane Doe 1 wanted to sue. Now, Scientologists aren't allowed to sue each other. So Scientology could have come in and been like, hey, you're violating the rules. You're out of here. But they didn't do that because they knew Danny did what she was accusing him of. So they were like, we have to keep this as quiet and tied up as possible. And I'm giving, and even with what I'm giving you now, Debo, this is just the summary. I do know the details. It's just too time consuming to give all the details. Scientology knows Danny did this. So the Scientology, Jane Doe 3 also went to the authorities at the Celebrity Center and reported Danny. Jane Doe 2 did not, but there's earlier extenuating circumstances that explain why she didn't. Anyhow, that's a pretty decent answer to your question, Debo. Thank you for the super chat. William Rice, was Claire Headley's testimony mentioned in the defense closing statement? You're a trooper for bringing us updates, Aaron. Big time respect. I'm so glad that you asked because I forgot to mention this. Yes. Claire Headley's testimony was mentioned in the closing statements, ironically by Cohen, because he was bitching that she was even allowed to testify in the first place. He actually dedicated a few minutes of his closing arguments to that. And in his closing arguments, even mentioned that Claire Headley is involved with a nonprofit foundation that helps people who are leaving Scientology. And I thought to myself, how dumb can you be to remind the jury about this wonderful work that Claire Headley does? If I was a juror, I'd be like, now why do people leaving Scientology need a whole ass nonprofit organization dedicated to helping them? Maybe you shouldn't have mentioned that. But Cohen was mentioning it because he thought it's something that speaks to Claire's bias. And you go, she was testifying as an expert. She was testifying as an expert. Anyway, Cohen wanted to be like, well, she wasn't really an expert, but she was also biased, and it's up to you to decide whether to believe her testimony at all. Anyway, I thought he really put his foot in his mouth there, or he would have been better off putting his foot in his mouth and not mentioning Claire and the Aftermath Foundation and all that stuff. But yeah, it did get mentioned there. Thank you, William Rice, for the super chat. Karen McCourt, doesn't jury instructions come after closing arguments? So actually, Karen, the judge spent the first 30 minutes of the proceedings today reading the jury instructions to the jury. And they do also get a written copy of the instructions to, review on their own when they get back into the deliberation room. But, and again, I don't know what standard procedure is. Your question, your assumption here makes perfect sense to me. But for some reason, the judge spent the first 30 minutes reading the jury instructions to the jury. I'm assuming it's normal. I don't know that it's not normal. I'm just saying. I'll be honest, I pretty much tuned out for those 30 minutes. I'm not going to lie. I didn't even take notes for those 30 minutes. I'm like, if this thing is in writing somewhere, I'm not going to write it all down. Thank you for the super chat, Karen McCourt. Okay, Pamela Crawford. It's his job to lie for Danny Masterson. He's putting doubt in their minds. Indeed. Chris Curtin. I didn't get into court today. Too many Danny Masterson D-bags there. Oh, you tried to get into court, but you didn't. That's what I'm getting. Where were all those hollow side ties in the past 2 weeks when it counted? Hi, Osa. Yeah, apparently Masterson did this in the first trial as well. For closing statements, he brought a ton of his people to court, managed to get them, signed up. Actually, no, his people didn't have to sign up. Yeah, he stuffed the court. I mean, Danny Masterson's friends were sitting right in front of me, blocking my view. Whether they chose to sit in front of me or whether the court officials just happened to assign it that way, I'm not exactly totally sure on it. But it was pretty uncomfortable. Not for me, but for some others I could see as well. Like some of the people who were there as victims advocates were literally sitting shoulder to shoulder with Danny Masterson's friends. It felt pretty inappropriate, but it's a public courtroom, so what you going to do? Evelyn Lee Barney, are objections allowed in closing? I thought not. So there are some objections that were raised. Actually, the objections that were raised on both sides were pretty much objection misstates the evidence or misrepresents the testimony. And even those objections, some of them were sustained, but even some of those were like, look, this is where you guys get to argue. So argue. The attorneys were very, I'd say, respectful to each other during closing arguments. There wasn't anything noteworthy. Okay, Tenacious Art Girl. Since Scientology is now under scrutiny for human trafficking, what are the chances that Tom Cruise has been using underage Sea Org members to do work for Tom on his personal property for free? I would say the chances of Tom having used underage Sea Org workers is extremely low. The underage people are the ones you want to keep them in the back lines. You want to keep them hidden. You want to keep them building e-meters at Golden Air Productions and stuff like that. Maybe working as messengers on the int base. Miscavige doesn't really spend any time at the int base anymore. He works at Scientology Media Productions in Hollywood. So, but yeah, there's plenty of overage Sea Org professionals working who can work for Tom Cruise's staff. There's no reason to do the underage stuff. Plus, you don't have to be underage in order for it to be labor trafficking. But anyway, I hope that's an answer to your question. Gigi, Aaron, thank you so much for revealing all of this for the world to see. Is there a way to send you a direct message? You can email me at growingupinscientology@gmail.com. You can message me on Twitter. You can message me on Facebook. Some people message me on Instagram. Shouldn't be hard to find a way. Thank you, Gigi. Okay, so Red Tar for me. I worry that it will be all swirled down the celebrity privilege sewer into the predatory swamp. Fingers crossed in Melba. Idaho. I'm not sure I understand the sentence. Let me read it again. I worry that it will all swirl down the celebrity privilege sewer into the predatory swamp. I think you're saying you're worried that he will be acquitted. Is that what you're saying? I certainly worry that he will be as well, because that would suck. But as I sit here right now, I'm reasonably optimistic that he will be convicted. But, we don't know. We'll find out soon enough. Okay, next, the Moody Therapist. I love this community so much, and all of SPTV. I love that name, the Moody Therapist. Thank you so much, and thank you for the super chat. Okay, 86 GOP. Yes, you have a bias, but it is justifiable and fact-based. Despite the prejudice, your coverage has been fair and open to conflicting arguments. Well, thank you very much. Thank you very, very much. I appreciate that. Okay, Anna I. Typically, objecting during closing is seen as in bad taste and only done if it's an extreme issue. If it's a small issue and the jury is half asleep, better to just let it go than bring it to the jury's attention by objecting. Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. Thank you for that. John says, thank you for putting yourself in the line of fire for all of us who are still under the radar. We are all rooting for you. I love you under the radar, guys. Oh, shit. There's a whole video I'm going to do. Okay, I'll plug it very shortly right now. It has been brought to my attention that there are a lot of Scientologists who are watching my Danny Masterson coverage because they think that's okay to do. It's not like they're watching my other Scientology videos. And so we have a lot of Scientology eyeballs on these videos. Now, some of you guys might know there is a highly placed insider who's been sharing some very valuable information with big bad SPs like me and Chris Shelton and Tony Ortega. And he's been able to do so for a year or more while keeping his identity completely secret, even from me and Chris and Tony. Now, in the world of Scientology, it's very easy to determine that someone is the real deal and someone really is who they say they are, or they know what they know without knowing their identity, such as the nature of the Scientology nomenclature and, the intricacies of the organization and everything. The insider has asked me to promote to under the radar Scientologists who are afraid to, let's say, get in touch with me directly because they're worried that somehow their identity is going to be revealed just somehow or another. And he goes, look, encourage people to contact me and they can share the information with me and I will share the information with you. And so none of these under the radar Scientologists will have to worry about potentially revealing their identity because they're not revealing their identity to anyone outside of Scientology. I'm making that little plug right now. Unfortunately, I haven't told any of you how to contact the insider. So that's going to, when I actually do a dedicated video, that's what I'm going to do. But stay tuned for that. I just was reminded about that and I've been a little delinquent in doing that video. So that'll be coming. Thank you, John. Marty De Gregorio. Marty De Gregorio. I'm going with De Gregorio. Thank you. Gigi, read the letter sent regarding the judge. Curious why no one from Scientology signed the letter. Is this policy? Oh, so the reason nobody from Scientology signed the letter is because they want to create the impression that this ground roots outrage is coming from outside of the Scientology community. Because people would take it less seriously if it was just Scientologists complaining about Scientology being prejudiced against, because Scientology says you're prejudiced against if you say something mean about them. But if a religious community with no affiliation with Scientology is offended on Scientology's behalf, then gasp, you must be a bigot. So that's the answer. Thank you, Gigi. Nancy Ives, I totally agree with your assessment of how the defense was using the word reasonable. Thank you for your stellar coverage. SPTV love. Thank you, Nancy Ives. Thank you very much. Simone Ferran. I'm about 15 minutes late. I just wanted you to know that I love your work. I love your work that you are doing. Keep it up. Thank you, Simone. I very much appreciate it. Joshua Cox. Keep up the great work. Aaron. Hi, Osa. Yes, indeed. Hello, Osa. Lori Wilmore. Thank you for sticking around in Cali and keeping us in the loop. Danny is going down. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed. Joshua Armenta. Angry Gay Pope and I weren't able to join for the proceedings this morning, but we wore Princess Leia t-shirts. Yeah, we gotta grab a drink before I leave town. Joshua, tell Pope that if you don't have my number, no, Pope's got my number. You guys should text me and let's go meet up somewhere and hang for a little bit. It'd be a shame to be here for this long and not get to see you guys. All right, cool. What's next? Natalie, can I buy a bobblehead for the PIs? Yeah, if I get the guy's address, we'll send him a Mike Rinder bobblehead. That's awesome. Okay, Corbett Williams. Great job covering this trial, Aaron. I'm interested to see whether Podboreski will be required to testify as to how she obtained discovery in this case. What an obnoxious group of people. Corbett, I can tell you, she is going to be required to testify. We believe that Podboreski, Sean Hawley, Cohen, as I sit here right now, I'm having a brain fart. I can't remember if it's Phil Cohen or Rob Cohen. Tom Mesereau. We believe those attorneys are going to have to take the stand and answer questions about having potentially shared discovery with Vicky Podboreski. And I mean, is there any reason why Vicky can't be called to the stand herself? I don't think there is. So we'll see. We shall see. Thank you, Corbett. Pat Shore. I wonder how fast the divorce will hit the table after the trial is over. Love you, AA Run. Pat, Bijou has her own troubled history of committing sexual assault. So I think what you have is two little peas in a pod. I think the only way we're going to see Bijou divorce Danny is if he goes to prison. I think if he's found not guilty or not if there's a hung jury, believe me, Danny Masterson is not being unanimously acquitted. There's zero chance of that. But if there is a hung jury again, if there's a mistrial again, I think they'll stay married. Actually, that's what I put my money on. Chris Curtin, the candy dish is disturbing. So many people mention this. Judge Almeida has a bowl of candy that she leaves out for everyone. And you can tell it's a personal thing. She loves doing it. In fact, she made a joke. She's like, hey, I collect stray cats. This is just what I do. She likes taking care of things and taking care of people. So she has a bowl of mini candy bars on, the wall that separates the gallery from, the area the lawyers sit in. Unfortunately, the bowl is sitting right between Danny and his crew. So if you want some of this candy, you've got to go up and be like, hey, what's up? Just here to get a Snickers. And so some people have said it just feels inappropriate to have a little bowl of candy at a trial like this. I don't personally find it inappropriate. I think it's kind of nice that the judge wants to, keep people's blood sugar appropriately regulated. But I know what you're saying, Chris. A lot of people have said that same thing. Okay, within 360, why is Danny so important? Why can't they just say bad apple and throw him under the bus? Well, look, it's not Scientology that's trying Danny. Okay, you're probably wondering, okay, why does Scientology seem to be running so much interference for Danny? All they're trying to do is protect their own butts. Scientology does not give a shit about Danny Masterson. They wish this guy would probably just drop dead or get hit by a bus. Danny Masterson is nothing to Scientology, but he brings a lot of potential problems for Scientology. And Scientology will do anything to tamp those problems down, even if it means having to run interference for a piece of shit predator like Danny Masterson. All righty. Gigi, thank you. How can I direct message? Gigi, you can email me at growingupinScientology@gmail.com. That's probably the best way. Veronica Bombria, go to sleep. We need a well-rested Aaron for tomorrow. It's only 6 p.m. But I am tired as hell. I'm not going to lie. Okay, Ron, thanks for great reporting. SPTV rocks. Well, thank you so much, Ron. Lisa Floyd, if Danny Masterson is found guilty, will penetrate public Scientology? Oh, will it penetrate public Scientologists' consciousness or be memory hold? Also, how many Lex Friedman views do you think are OSA? They really make their own trouble. If Danny Masterson is found guilty, every Scientologist in the world is going to know about it. I promise you that. By the way, my Lex Friedman interview is almost about to hit 2 million views. I don't think OSA is a large portion of those views, actually. I'm probably half of those views, just going back and seeing how many views the video is now at. I'm a little obsessive like that. Once the video hits 2 million views, I'll stop checking because it'll never hit 3 million. So, all right, Jermaine Down. I just reported your bishop friend to the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs Inspector General. Excellent. He has a photo online of him wearing a jacket that says he is a VA Ombudsman General. He's not a VA employee. There is so much. There are so many things that have been revealed about the true nature and history of Bishop L.J. Gilroy. He's not a bishop. He ordained himself in a church that he created. He's an ombudsman of a company he incorporated. The guy's a felon. I mean, that's okay. If you're a felon, you can become a reformed felon. But the guy did 9 years in prison, and I think he's actually gone to prison 3 times. And the guy calls himself a bishop. Anyway, he's an absolute fraud. And this fraud is the guy Scientology had send a letter to the court. Not just the court, not Judge Almeida, but her boss, the supervising judge, the supervising supervisor. I mean, sometimes Scientology really does make it seem like it's just a bunch of total morons over there. The thing is, it's not really true. There's a lot of really smart people up there. But anyway, I guess a moron is as moron does, right? All right. TCH, have you seen the documentary on Anonymous on YouTube? Per it, Scientology and Tom Cruise are responsible for Anonymous forming. I can't say I've seen the documentary, but I think I know what you're talking about. And who knows? Maybe it's true. I'm not sure. Okay. ML Hinrichs, Xenu merch shipping, waiting for Aaron merch now. So the delay, by the way, is Claire is generously helping me and Mike set up our channel's merch stores so that we can all launch the SPTV merch at the same time. And the AA Run, funny, different AA Run merch will be available right when those stores launch. I really do think it'll be within a week. She's been giving us so much help. It's fantastic. So thank you for that. Eat more pizza now. At this point, what is the most surprising thing about the trial? Asking for a friend. Surprising? I mean, nothing's really surprising. I feel like that's kind of a cop-out answer, but it's just true. I mean, nothing's been a real surprise. Okay. The only genuine surprise has been how much differently the testimony hits when you're able to hear it like really live in person as it's being given, as opposed to reading words on the page. Reading words on a page just truly does not do it justice. That was a surprise to me. Okay, Sarah Bennett. Can this anonymous insider be trusted? Could it be a trap? Sarah, no, the insider has been leaking some incredible. I've spoken with the insider. I just don't know who he is. And like I said, it's sort of unique to the Scientology world that it is very easy to verify if someone is legitimately has the experience they say, has the knowledge base that they claim to have. It's impossible to truly fake your way through a Scientology conversation with an experienced Scientologist. I mean, the terminology is too specific. And I could go on and on and on. It's not a trap. Well, the best trap is a trap you think is not a trap. But setting that aside, it's not a trap. Okay. Weather Servo 9. AA, your daily commentary on this has been quite good. Can we look forward to more in-person on-the-ground reporting on other things after this? Yes, indeed. I'd like to think that I'll be able to do something similar to this for any other trials relating to Scientology. I have not enjoyed being away from home for almost a month, although my stay here has been nice and comfortable. I do have kids, guys. However, next month, Riza Islam is going on trial for a huge fraud case. Riza Islam is a member of the Nation of Islam. He was also a member of Scientology. This fraud involves both. It's going to be incredible. I would love to be here for it. And if it doesn't look like it's going to be 4 weeks, a 4-week trial, then I just might come out here for it. And other things. There's other lawsuits going on that might be in the Tampa courthouse. Of course, I live in Clearwater. I'll go to those trials all day long. So yeah, hopefully Weather Servo, there will be more of this in the future. So thank you very much. John Sistowski. So the candy bars, good size, or are they the itty bitty? Are there peanut butter cups? They're the itty bitty ones. But the regular size peanut butter cups. I took most of those out of the bowl because those are my favorites. They got the little itty bitty, not even like the little ones like this, but the little square ones. The itty bitties. But yeah, they didn't have the tiny little peanut butter cups. They had the full size peanut butter cups. And that was a score. Okay. Angelina, did the judge mention the letter she received from the fake ministers? She actually mentioned the letters last week, but they weren't made public. And then I found that the organization that sent the letters had published one of the letters on their website. And that's what I was using. I don't actually know what the second letter is. And if I ever get my hands on it, I'll do another video about it. So thank you for that, Angelina. Panko, many judges put out candy for us lawyers who need a tiny break and boost of sugar. Yeah, I mean, it seems to be a decent idea. Deedra Steele, thank you, Deedra Steele. Chris Curtin, my bad. I thought it was Danny Masterson. Peeps should be moved. Wait, my bad. Oh, I thought it was Danny Masterson. Oh, did you let Danny's people put out the candy? Is that what you were saying? Should be moved. Yeah, the bowl should be moved. I think the bowl should be moved. Okay, it looks like this might be the last one, you guys. Having heard the whole trial now, do you think that the late Lisa Marie's testimony would have added to the trial? So Lisa Marie's testimony was going to be that she was essentially asked to intervene, and one might say to obstruct justice, by convincing Jane Doe 1 to stop what she was doing in cooperating with the police. That testimony does not necessarily indicate Danny Masterson's guilt. You see, you could have someone going to the police correctly or incorrectly, and Scientology is still going to get you to stop doing it. So, although her testimony, I don't think her testimony, the testimony of someone like that in a case like this probably would have had a major impact on the jury, if I had to guess. But as far as the substance of the testimony, it wouldn't have been a big game changer. Where Lisa Marie's testimony would have been almost make or break would be the civil case. And so yeah, that's my answer on that. Ryan, now you've admitted you spoke with the insider. Beware of Scientology tapping your phone. Be careful. It's actually very, very difficult for an organization like Scientology to tap someone's phones. And that's according to Mike Rinder, who has expertise in trying to do things like that for Scientology. And also there's many ways to speak with someone through encrypted apps and things like that, where it's not, well, anyway, I'm not going to claim to be an expert, so I'm not going to sit here and claim something can or cannot be done. But all I can say is that the insider seems to be particularly knowledgeable about how to conceal his identity from the people he's worried about finding out who he is. Keep in mind, he's not scared of us finding out who he is. He's scared of Scientology finding out who he is. And I think the assumption is one of the best ways to prevent Scientology from finding out who he is to prevent us from knowing who he is in case Scientology is spying on him. So it's almost like he's the one who has really successfully taken the proper steps. And so if he says that we're going to talk in this manner or that manner, then that's how we're going to talk. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. And that's why it's so cool that he wants to take it upon himself to protect everyone else's identity by just being kind of the, I guess you call it the gatekeeper, the conduit for now for people. Because he said, listen, he said, do not underestimate how many people would love to be sharing information, but don't do so because they're just terrified of some security breach or information leak, and they're going to get busted. And these are people who have huge extended Scientology families and professional connections and kids and all this kind of stuff. And so anyway, his proposal here is truly, truly brilliant. And I love it. So we're going to do it. Deidre Steele, sorry for the remedial question. Thankfully, the judge allowed so much more information in this trial. Thankfully, the judge allowed so much more information in this trial. Did she have case law to hang her hat on? Oh, yeah. The judge many times read from the statutes that she was relying on for every decision that she was making in this case, because Cohen was, of course, constantly filing objections, making objections, and saying he wanted certain objections preserved for appeal and all that kind of stuff. So she's been extremely thorough. Okay, Selena Michelle, hi Aaron, hi Osa, hi Selena. Brett Grace, wouldn't it have been impactful because Lisa Marie was at least partially seen as still in Scientology too? Oh, for sure. Look, if I'm on the jury and Lisa Marie Presley is testifying against Danny Masterson and saying that Scientology authorities asked her to prevent Jane Doe from going to the police, and what's interesting, guys, is Lisa Marie would not say who asked her to do it, but she was willing to say that it was David Miscavige she reported back to with the results. Isn't that weird? Why would you not want to say who did it, who asked you, but you would be okay saying you reported back to David Miscavige? It must be that maybe she didn't want to throw the person who asked her under the bus and it was just someone following orders or something like that. I mean, I guess that explanation would make sense. Well, everyone, it looks like that is it. That is all we've got. Thank you everyone for watching. Guys, we got 4,700 people watching right now. If you haven't hit that like button yet, please hit that like button for me. It's free, it's fast, it's easy, and it does seem to actually help with YouTube notifications, believe it or not. So that's it for today, guys. There will be more to update on tomorrow. Probably not a ton, but there will be more. So stay tuned. Hit that subscribe button. Hit that notification bell. Sometimes it even works. Thanks for watching, everyone. Thanks to everyone who watches until the very end, and I'll talk to you soon.
Okay. if you want to see my rock and roll songs, click right on this guitar. And if you want to see a different one of my videos, then you could click right inside here. If you have subscribed or not, subscribe